So I've been joined by David Bonn and José Papí. Let's talk briefly about the whole smart city movement. It's changed a lot. The last 5 or 6 years. 6 years ago we launched Thinking Cities magazine as a completely separate entity to Thinking Highways. There was almost no crossover. Now here we are in 2018 and there's more crossover than there's not. If the two magazines were a Venn diagram, I do like a Venn diagram, the intersection of the two is enormous. If you're just in the ITS sector or just in the smart city sector, you're not really taking part anymore. The conversation's happening in the middle. So how do cities who are still kind of working in that awful phrase silos, cities are working on their own, and cities within countries are working on their own, not really discussing their issues with other cities. And yet they're all working with startups and companies and SMEs and technology companies and advisors who are advising them on how to become a smart city. And yet it's the same people giving advice to the same cities, and it's startups producing pretty much the same solution without knowing that each other exists. So how can cities learn a bit more about what each other is doing without sort of spending money and going to they go to shows and events and research papers? Doesn't do the trick. They have to find a way of having one place where they can find information out. David, how do you think you've worked with the smart city sector since it began, really? So how can they do that? Is there an answer to that question?
It's a difficult one to answer for many cities, because as you unfortunately used the term silos, that's how so many of the cities actually still operate, largely around silo budgets, therefore silo thinking, therefore silo sharing of knowledge. I think there is a definite opportunity for knowledge to be shared between the departments in a city, but also to be shared between cities, because I think there is a finite amount of money available, and if we could find a way for people to share knowledge, share the work that's done, such that the benefits from one city and the investment one city has made should be instantly picked up by another city, and they invest their money in a different area.
Yeah.
So collectively, when you look holistically across the region, across the country, then a lot of the issues have been dealt with by individual cities, but collectively they've gained the benefits.
Yeah. So José, you're one of the commercial coaches on the Frontier Cities 2 Accelerator project, where you're working with startups with smart city mobility applications. It's the case where the ones that have been successful haven't necessarily been successful in the cities in which they're based. They've had to go outside, and there's particularly, we won't name them, a company who are based in south of Italy have found success in the north of Germany. Is it not the case that really that's great for them and well done to them, but their own city wasn't interested even talking to them? So how can we get cities to be a bit more open-minded? Brussels, Barcelona, Amsterdam, 3 cities that come to mind, Manchester, 4, that are really open to innovation, but others just don't seem to be interested. They call themselves a smart city, and all of their staff are smart city advisor, smart city procurement manager. They've just added the word smart to their business cards. They're not actually doing the work of a smart city, unless I'm being too harsh.
Totally, no, I concur with Dave's vision on this. No, there's a silo approach. This is very clear. This silo approach disappears from time to time during the international conferences that we all know, organized by associations, organized by international institutions. But it is true that once people leave the room, leave the venues, they go back immediately to this silos philosophy. And I think one of the main problem is that you don't have a place, where to retrieve the information, There's not a single repository, there's not a single digital, platform where you can go and find everything there. And who is who's being active in a particular topic, which are the main providers, which are the main consultants. It's very difficult to have everything, together on the same place. So I think there's a need, that this information is not asymmetric anymore, that it becomes better organized, and that everyone has access to it. You mentioned before the fact that now everything has become smart. I recall that in the good old days, I was a transport expert, then I became a mobility expert, then I became an ITS expert, And then I am supposed to be a smart city expert. So aren't the problems the same? And the reality is that we have not been able as a sector to answer in a, let's say, consistent way to the challenges that the cities have. I think the time has come to put everything together, whether we call it a smart city or the new fancy word that we will fabricate in a few years from now. But I think the time has come for this knowledge, this practice, this best practice, to be consulted by everyone and profited by everyone.
Yeah. So it's handy then, in terms of timing, that we're about to launch a product that does exactly that. So our Smart City Solutions Guide, which is an enormous undertaking, it's a real beast of a platform, that it will help cities from A to B, not just what do we need to do. So let's say a city decides it needs to renovate its water taxes, and they're going to implement driverless, autonomous, sustainable, 3D printed water taxis. It sounds ridiculous, it's entirely possible. They can come to our Solutions Guide and find all that in there. It's not just a list of products or a list of solutions or potential cities that have the same philosophy. It's the whole thing. It's broken down into hundreds of different sections with case studies and thought leadership and product guides and opinion pieces. It's an editorial based directory system, massively comprehensive. So Dave, obviously we've been working on this together, but can you talk about that, how you think that is actually going to help cities? So put yourself in the position of a city that does what that ridiculous scenario I just came up with. It's one place where they can go and answer all those questions in 3 or 4 clicks.
I think it's the speed with which you can get the information is one of the key issues for the city, and having a platform where they can, within 2 or 3 clicks, go and get information prepared by the industry itself, prepared by those that are independent of the suppliers in the industry. I think that's really important. But it's not just a collection of sales brochures. Mm-hmm. It's about validated information on the services, the options, the solutions, products that are available, that have actually been almost validated by the H3B experts that we have. We have quite a collection of them in the different domains and the smart city domains. So what we're trying to create here is a platform where somebody, a senior person in a city who has the challenge of giving them of the water taxes, can go to one location and find trusted information with a complete picture. It's not a case of trying to search endlessly on the web. We've got the information, it's in one place. We've actually checked it to see that the claims being made by those organisations are actually correct. Yeah. The client can trust the site.
Yes, hence we're calling ourselves trusted curators, exactly what we do. So Jose, where do you stand on this? Obviously you're one of the experts that we're talking about. It's going to be part of this verification process. So what do you think is important for a city to know? That there's an industry insight piece written by someone who's not talking about their own product, and they're not selling anything, but they're looking at the issues affected by, or that affect the industry. The thought leadership pieces are more commercial in nature, but again, they're more looking at how this situation is occurring, what can be done to solve it. There's people who have written the thought leadership pieces that have pretty much shaped the way this industry works. So I know you're not a city, but if you were a city, do you think this is something that's vital to doing your job? So you can spend much less time researching. The research you did for your Brexit report was a huge amount of research for a report. So if you're doing a report into something that needs to be implemented, it's a huge amount of work.
I totally agree with you as well. I mean, we have to bear in mind that cities are receiving a magma of innovators and companies every single day. Everyone is claiming, I'm going to reshape your smart city on this or that aspect, and this will be at a low cost, and I am a reputed, reliable partner for you. And it's true that the cities normally are developing these relationships over human relationships in a way. They are not, I would say, technical or well thought, relationships. And I think that such a platform would help a lot, grasp into very complicated, number of solutions, and get to understand the real mega trends that are happening in the market. No, there are some politicians that are denying these mega trends, and there are some politicians that are even anticipating themselves too much to these mega trends, thinking they will happen today instead of in 15 or 20 years' time. I'm referring, for instance, to collaborative mobility. There's a big change in the paradigm in which before we had a traditional transport planning by a guy sitting in a ministry that would define what will be the supply of transport, in a given territory for the coming 10 years or 15 years. Now this is no longer there. Why? Because citizens are doing what they want. They want to work in the morning, they want to go to the gym in the evening, they want to watch a football match afterwards, and it's a totally different world with bicycles, with shared networks, with Ubers, with food deliverers, going to your home, your apartment, your office. Also, there's a new revolution that is in when you look at infrastructures, it's combining hardware and software into a single entity, something that was the unthinkable 10, 15 years ago. There was the world of asphalts and barriers, and there was the world of the ITS guys. Now these two worlds are pulling together, they're becoming the same, the smart infrastructures, etc., etc. Cities are facing a lot of changes. These changes are accelerating every day. Dave, we've witnessed this and how these changes are speeding up in recent times, and I think the platform you were referring to would be of much use to a smart city, obviously, and a half an hour invested there would save you dozens of face-to-face meetings or travel to conferences and events, etc. So, at my end, I also miss this kind of reference in my professional practice every day, because I have to be digging here and there, and checking and counter-checking sources, and this way my day-to-day job would be even easier for me.
Yeah, good. We've got a customer.
I think one of the things that we're trying to bring through the platform is the innovation that is out in the marketplace today. It's been very, very difficult in the past for innovation to get them, so innovators to get themselves in front of cities. They have some very, very good ideas, and they're actually ideas that cities would benefit from deploying in many cases. So one of the things we are seeking to do through, as a minimum, they'll be included in the platform. So the cities will see the current innovation that's coming through there, which has got to be really good. I think we're also looking to use the platform as a way of joining up innovators, that perhaps the sum of 3 innovators is greater than the individual parts. So what we're trying to do is a little bit of marriage brokering to bring innovators through, because these guys have got some real clever solutions, and cities would benefit in a far quicker time scale than perhaps some of the bigger organisations that are out there.
We discovered yesterday, we were in a workshop with startups, in which there were 22 in the room, and you asked the question, how many of you have had meetings with cities? All of them. And how many of you have been successful in those meetings? Was it 3? Was it 3 or 4? And it's not the fact that those 4 have a far better product than the other 18 at all. It's the fact they spoke to receptive cities who were receptive to the idea of what they'd done and were interested in their innovation. That's the key, isn't it? It's getting those other 18 cities who they'd approached just to think a bit differently. And maybe they don't have the time to do any research, or they're just not up to date enough. The city I live in, so it has the word smart in front of it now. It's not smart at all. It's just paying lip service. It has this new smart corridor. It's not smart in the slightest. David knows that you've worked in that town. It's not a smart town. It may think it is, but it's not. So these cities need to wake up a bit and see the amount of work going into the startups we've been working with. They've put huge amounts of effort and time and money into this, getting their solutions ready. It's knocking that door down, isn't it? It's getting the foot in the door first, and then getting people to be receptive. We spoke with Pascal Smet, the Brussels Minister for Mobility and Public Works, was with us yesterday, and he is receptive to that kind of thing. But he said afterwards that he knows that's not always the case. When he's at meetings with other cities, they're surprised at how much time he gives to startups and innovators who just knock on his door or ring him and say, "Can I come and visit you?" And he normally says, "Yes, you've got half an hour. Tell me what you're doing." Shouldn't be that difficult, really. But so let's sum up, Dave. What's the next step? So we've got the smart city solutions guide ready to go. So where do you think we can take this? And Jose, if you sum up, the need for it exists.
I think with the solutions guide itself, as with any of these knowledge platforms, we are dependent on the information coming from, in one hand, the suppliers, the product manufacturers, the service delivery organisations. We want those companies to be part of the platform, and we will be able to then help them win more business, which is absolutely the objective behind it. We also want the cities to identify what their thinking is, what their plans are, with a view to making sure that industry is actually delivering what cities want. And the third leg of the stool for me is what is academia and their role in all of this, because they're actually developing the next generation, both of workers in the industry, but also in the clever ideas. A lot of that's coming out of academia as well. So it's about bringing together those three elements for the benefit of each other.
Well, they said the startups we were working with yesterday, of them, over a third are spin-offs from universities, and they become commercial ventures afterwards. Some are still students and some are academics. Well, they're spin-off and they become companies in their own right. So, Jose, let's sum up. What's the future for the future?
I mean, I will take up on a thought that Dave has just referred to, which is that sometimes innovators, they miss about presenting the benefits of their solutions to the cities. Sometimes they fall so much in love with their solution, with the technicalities of it, with the functionalities of it, that they forget to present to the city, listen, if you use my solution, you will save this amount of money every year, or you will increase your income, or you will reduce emissions by this percent. Sometimes there's I see in the magma of innovators that we forget about this, that the city is there to render a service to the citizens. So I think that's an element to highlight there. And again, silos, I think I've liked a lot that you mentioned this earlier in our conversation. You know, it is true that you need some receptiveness, you know, in the politician there, but it is true, and I repeat myself, that sometimes the solutions are not presented properly. So I think the platform you were referring to, I think can serve this purpose, can facilitate, you know, the innovators, you know, to show what they can do for the cities in the right format, in the right place. And I think curating all this information into one platform, it's a gigantic job you guys are going through, and I think it will be most useful for the future of mobility and for serving these new paradigms that are changing every day in our transport lives.
So for me, one of the experiences that I've been having of late, and the way the market has changed, cities still require large organisations to take contract risk when they're procuring solutions. The solutions themselves are becoming more complex. The solutions are expected to deliver significant levels of innovation. And that the way that I'm seeing the market going is that cities are now expecting the lead organisation to be an integrator rather than a traditional supplier in the old sense of the word, where the supplier did everything. Well, what the market is looking for, classic examples, recently in the contract that was awarded down in Sydney in Australia for the ICMP programme, where the lead organisation has identified a number of large partners who themselves would traditionally have taken significant contracts in their own right, but are now part of a consortium because the level of complexity, the level of innovation, the skill sets that are required to deliver today's more complex solutions requires that level of expertise from outside single companies. So who do you know is good in a particular area? Well, again, what we're trying to do through the platform and through the solutions is enable companies to promote their skill set. So the platform identifies the solutions that companies have worked on, their skill set, and the marriage brokering again can take place to bring together the level of consortium that's required for the major programs that are running around the globe. But, there are some very, very big projects that need small companies, medium-sized companies and big companies, and multiple big companies. And to the extent where many of them in a previous life would have been seen as competitors. They are now partners and working together
Certainly
successfully.
the case of tolling. The tolling sector, where, as you said, in the past 10 years ago, Company A would win a tolling contract to implement a truck tolling scheme in a European country. Now it's a consortium of 5 or 6 of them, as you said, years ago would have competed together.
Yeah.
So do you think if you're tasked with building a consortium, that something like our solutions guide is actually a really good way of finding out who the best partners are without actually having to go and talk to them? You can see because it's curated and trusted information and verified information, and it's not commercial fluff, and it doesn't say we are the best, it just tells you what the stuff is and how it works and what it does and who it's for. Do you think that's a good thing? It's going to, again, save people time and money.
The key players before were integrating technologies and acting as the sole supplier. Today we are seeing them more as an aggregator of solutions. So obviously knowing who is who in the market and where solutions are being deployed, can immediately benefit your tenders and your bids and what you propose to your clients. That is obvious to me. I think that we are seeing how companies that were traditionally, let's say, located in a geographical area of business, they are more and more becoming global. There are companies that are born global today directly. There's a company that sometimes has not even had a single contract in their country of origin, and they have already obtained contracts in 3 continents. And I think that that trend will prevail in the long run. So I think the platform can serve to create this global market for smart cities and will assist companies in becoming global faster than what happened in the past.
Yeah.
Certainly the experiences that I've had in the past few years is clients are expecting global solutions. They actually want the best that they can get from around the world.
Yeah.
So it's really important that we help industry expose international solutions to enable the best teams to be formed.
Sure. So something like our solutions guide is going to actually help that. It's almost team building. It's not building blocks, but team building.
It is. I think it's the initial place where people should go. There is always an element of personal relationship will follow on from that, but people's time is expensive, so if you can identify the organisation with the right skill set capability quickly, then you can save yourself time. You've got a big tender to prepare. The quicker you can get on with it with your team, the better.
Jose, David, thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.